Hello everyone, welcome back to the series of video lecture on the subject English for Skill Enhancement. Today I will be talking about or I will be discussing about the text which is prescribed in Unit 3, which is lessons from online learning that should stick. So there are certain things that we had learned during online learning, online education, and the authors believe that those things should actually stay, though even though we again migrated back to the traditional mode of teaching like physical classrooms and all, but there are certain things that should stay. So we'll see in more detail. So what is the overview of today's lecture first? Let's see that the central idea. So I'll be talking about what is the central idea, the crux of the text, what is there, what is the main message of the text, and then we'll be talking about the 4 specific features of online learning that the author believed that should stay with us, like we should not discard them. So let's jump into the main part. What is the central idea of the text then? First, authors, F. Hyder Alvi, Deora Hurst, Thomas, these are all the authors. Basically, he is the main author, okay, F. Hyder Alvi. And then, what is the central idea? The authors discuss that with all its limitation. Normally, what happens, the moment we talk about online education, we actually we get a flashback, right? We go back to that COVID era and we get terrified about thinking about online learning, how difficult they were, right? And how passive they were. So normal impression of online learning is very bad, it's negative, right? But then the author has pointed out actually there are certain good things also that happened, that got introduced in the field of education through that online learning. Though it was not desired, it was forced because of lockdown and all, but then there were certain good things also that got introduced. And what we should do now, according to the author is saying we should actually continue to utilize those good points of online learning. So that is the central idea about the text. And then the author actually went on to discuss about 4 specific features that he believed, the authors, they believe that we should still continue, even though we are now again back to normal conventional kind of teaching, but we should continue. Now let's see. So the first point was, the first feature, learning to learn online. Online learning, actually what happened, this online education, it actually taught us that it's very important to first learn how to learn online. Now all of a sudden, if you bring some students, if you gather some students and ask them to learn something, or if you expect them to learn something, in most of the cases it would be a disaster. No one will learn anything. You will end up wasting your time and energy, and also students will end up wasting their time and energy. So before learning, please, it's very important to prepare the learners so that they can learn, they can start learning. So that preparation is very important, and this online learning actually, this COVID era online learning actually taught us that particular thing. Why? Because in COVID era, we understood one fact, that one size fits all educational models does not suit all learners. We understood it well that, one particular conventional kind of educational technique might not be useful or effective for all kind of learners. Different kinds of learners, different types of learners, they do need different kinds of technology, different kinds of methodology. So that is one important thing. For example, younger students, they prefer to physical classroom because they love the social interaction that happens during the classes, physical classes. But when it comes to more mature people, mature learner, they prefer what? Online learning. Why? Because adult learners prefer flexibility and convenience of online education. Because online education is more flexible and convenience. For example, if it is a recorded lecture, you can attend it at any time. You don't need to be physically present at a particular moment of a day. Right? You can access that video from anywhere, anytime, and you can prepare. You can actually start your learning process. So that's why for mature people, they prefer online education. But when it comes to young learners, they always prefer socialization. That's why physical classrooms. So the message is, this phase of online education, it actually taught us that it's very important to cater to the needs of the learner. right? To prepare them so that they can start learning. So that is one important thing that happened, and we can do that while we are actually using conventional physical classrooms also. So before, let's say for example, as a teacher, if I am entering into a classroom to teach students something with the expectation that students will learn that particular thing, what I should do first? I should first prepare my learners so that they can start that learning process. I cannot outrightly start teaching with the expectation that they will learn. No, I need to check how are they, what kind of methodology will suit them, how I can actually change or modify my teaching style, what kind of ambience I should create in the classrooms. All these things should be taken into consideration. So that means though we actually started thinking about all these things during that online learning, but that is something that we can still use for today's physical classrooms also. So that is one important thing that should actually stick. We should not discard this particular process. Fine. Now, see the next thing that the author is saying we should stick to. Okay, before that, online learning faces challenges such as poor internet connectivity, lack of financial resources, inadequate digital skills. So we know that all these are common, lacuna, common shortcomings of online education. So before we start teaching something through online, we should keep all these things in our mind. Okay. Now, how it can be done? Multimodal distance education, financial support systems, orientation programs to help students learn how to study online. All these things should be used. All this process or tools should be utilized so that the students are better prepared before they start learning something online. Right? Now, next thing, very important, especially for the teacher, designing online teaching with purpose. Now, what happened? Have you observed? I don't know whether you have observed or not, but as a teacher, I have gone through it personally, so I know what happens. When we go for physical classrooms and all, we are always little complacent. We are confident that we can manage that classroom because we have been teaching the subject. I have good knowledge on subject, so I can somehow manage. But all of a sudden, when we actually migrated into online learning, online education during COVID era, what happened? We had to discard our conventional teaching method. We couldn't follow the normal teaching style that we used to follow in physical classroom. No, because online platform was entirely different ballgame, right? So what happened? Teachers were actually forced to change their style. They were forced to do some research to find out how to make that lecture more interactive, how to engage the learners more, how to retain the attention of the learners. All those things came surfaced, and because of that the teachers were required to put extra effort while designing their teaching for online platform. So online teaching design should be learner centered, promoting high engagement and collaboration through active learning strategies. All these things were introduced in online learning. Otherwise, you yourself also might have done it at some point during online learning. What you used to do, you used to just click on the link, Google Meet or whatever, and then you used to be actually present in the classroom, but no one knows actually whether you are listening to the class or not. It was very difficult for the teacher to understand whether everyone or every student is listening or not, right? So that's why they require to change their teaching methodology. They understand that conventional one-way kind of lecture delivery will not work in online education at all, though it can somehow work, though it's not effective, but it can somehow still work in physical classroom. But online classroom, one-way lecture delivery is highly avoidable. It will not serve any purpose. So that's why designing learner-centered material, changing the delivery style to enhance engagement of the learners, and then to initiate collaboration between the learners. All those strategies, because of all these things, the teachers were required to change their delivery style. So that is one important thing that should also stay. So the way we actually change our style, we started thinking about our delivery style before each and every lecture. The author is of the opinion that we should continue the same habit, even though now we are actually handling physical classroom. But this is a good habit that the author believes should stay. And I guess most of the teachers also will agree with the author. Fine. So creating quality online course requires collaboration between instructor, course developers, taking months to produce detailed, well-structured material. So the effort, the sincerity while preparing content for online, that can be utilized for physical classrooms also. It's not like, okay, it was only required, or all these things were required only for online classes. This can be very effective for making your offline classroom, your physical classrooms also better, right? Moving forward, integrating digital tools and online pedagogy into physical or hybrid classrooms can enhance engagement, collaboration, and student choice. So, as might have observed, many teachers, they started using different online tools like quiz and all those things. Different certain tools were there in order to make the lecture more engaging, more effective. Right now, the same kind of tools can be utilized for physical classrooms now also, because utilizing those tools can actually enhance the participation of the learners. The learners, today's generation, they are more addicted, like they are more, comfortable with technology. So if you can integrate some technological tools while delivering your lecture in physical classroom, your lecture obviously would be much more effective, because the students will be more willingly participating in your lecture. So that is one important thing. The next thing is blending space and time online. So what is this blending space and time online? These are the additional details that is being given by the author. I'm not going to talk about them in details. So there is one university that actually uses a mix of blended synchronous and asynchronous learning. What is synchronous learning and asynchronous learning? Synchronous learning means, like, basically it's like your COVID time classrooms only. They were synchronous. Why? Because you had a fixed timetable. According to that timetable only, your teacher used to come join in a Meet link or Google Classroom link, whatever, and then they used to deliver the lecture. So you were supposed to be virtually present during that time and listen to the lecture. So that is synchronous. Asynchronous means what? The lecture would be recorded and then it would be uploaded, let's say in a Google Drive or somewhere in an online platform, where you can access to the recorded video at any point of time as per your convenience, and you can listen, you can start learning. So that is the basic difference between synchronous and asynchronous learning. Okay, so this, what happened, this blending space and time online. So during online education, this actually happened because physical presence was not required, right? So it was okay for people to be sitting at some other place and then attending the lectures. Asynchronous, it's much more convenient because there was no fixed timetable also, because the lecture were recorded and then sent, like, stored in a particular platform. You could access to that particular platform and get access to the lecture video any point of time. Okay, so these things should actually continue in physical classrooms also. Normally what happens in physical classroom, your teacher comes, he picks a topic and then explain that topic in the classroom, deliver the lecture on that particular topic in the classroom. Once the class is over, the lecture also is over. You cannot go back to the lecture, right? Though you might be taking notes and all, but you will not have access to the same lecture again. But what will happen? Let's say if there is a camera placed in a corner of the classroom, when the teacher is delivering the lecture, the camera is actually capturing that video, and then that video gets saved or uploaded in some drive. So what happens? After having physical access to the classroom, like, you would be physically present to see the explanation, to listen to the explanation of the teacher, but at any point later also you can go back, access that video and check. Now that's why it's very important to blend space and time online, and it can continue in physical classes also, in physical classrooms also. Now the last point, what happened? COVID-19 began the disruption. AI will continue it. So it's about AI. What happens during this COVID era of online education? We started using many AI tools, right, in education. So what are those things? You can see here, AI coach. like for example chatbot kind of thing. Chatbot, you ask any questions, they will reply to you. So similarly, in many online educational program, what happened, they introduce this online AI coach. That means you can call it a virtual teacher. Though the teacher might not be physically present, but let's say you are reading something at night, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, right? What happens when you do that, you would be, let's say you get a doubt all of a sudden, but then you cannot call your teacher, or your teacher won't be physically present in front of you. So that's why your savior is that AI coach. You can simply ask that AI coach, he or she will explain everything in details. So this AI is an important thing that actually got more traction after this online education, after this COVID era online education. And it is something that are going to stay, according to the author. That's not, though online education we are now not preferring, we normally are going for physical classrooms and all, but this AI thing is there to stay. It's not going anywhere any soon. That's what the opinion of the author is. And I also believe the same thing. All physical, like the living teachers and all are fine. They can do a wonderful job, no doubt on that. But in addition to that, if we get help from this AI coach kind of thing, obviously our learning process, students' learning process would be much more effective and enhanced. Fine. So these are the 4 things. Please remember that. Okay. Successful integration of online and AI tools requires, but the author also gives an warning that while we are trying to, or we should try to integrate AI tools into education, what happens, we should be careful about their planning, strong digital infrastructure, and responsive student support system. All these things should be there. We should also prepare the students to be able to use all these AI tools. Otherwise, just simply introducing the AI tools without letting the students know how to use them properly, it won't be effective. In fact, it can create more confusion. That's why proper planning is important. Moving forward, educator must focus on using the momentum from the pandemic to create more open, engaging, accessible, and inclusive education system. Now, this line actually sums up the entire content of the text. So, the author is saying, the author has explained about 4 particular features that they believe should be continuing, should stay with us. That is one thing. And then what happened? Moving forward, the authors believe that those good things from online education should be utilized. We should continue, the educators should continue to utilize those good things. For what? For which purpose? To make this education more engaging, accessible, and inclusive. Fine. I hope it's clear. Now, so what is the summary? What is the takeaway point from today's lecture? The central idea of the text, that is, there are certain good things in online education that can be utilized for physical classrooms also to make our teaching and learning process much better and much more effective. And then the 4 key points, the more specific points that the author has explained why they are good and why we should continue with them in physical classrooms also. Fine. I hope it's clear. Thank you everyone for being with me. I'll meet with you all the next lecture with the next topic.